Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Virtual Sunday School. Well, today we're going to be talking about the most famous Abraham that you probably know. Well, maybe except for Lincoln. Now, the Abraham that we're going to be talking about is the father of all nations. He is the first patriarch. Think of patriarch as a spiritual leader of a community, kind of similar to a priest or a bishop. Now, this Abraham we're going to be talking about had a lot of exciting adventures. I mean, he battled with pharaohs, and he bartered with God over the destruction of great cities, and he was involved in great sacrifices, all of which we're going to get into. So now, if you remember the Tower of Babel story, what happened? All of the peoples were split into different cultures and nations, and what God wanted was to bring his people together. So God called upon a righteous man named Abraham and said,
I want you to leave the country that you live in, and I want you to go to a place named Canaan, and I will make you the father of many nations.
So what did Abraham do? He, together with his wife Sarah and his nephew Lot, they left their homes. Now he was 75. They left their homes and they went to Canaan. Now, once Abraham and his family arrived in Canaan, Abraham, as a righteous man, did what? He built an altar so that he could worship God. And he became very prosperous and very rich. But he had two big problems. Number one, his wife, Sarah, was not able to have children. Well, if you're going to be the father of many nations, you got to be able to have children. And the second thing was that the land became barren because there was a great famine across that land. So, what did Abraham do? He says,
well, I can't keep my family here because we're going to starve.
So he decided to go to Egypt, the land of the pharaohs, and at least he would have food. So now, as Abraham was on his way to Egypt, he got to thinking, and he's like,
my wife is really good looking. And I know that Pharaoh is probably gonna want Sarah, my wife, to be his wife. And then if that happens, they're probably gonna kill me.
So he tells Sarah,
I want you to tell the Pharaoh and everybody that you're my sister, because I don't want to really die.
So just as Abraham predicted, the minute that Pharaoh saw Sarah, his jaw dropped and he was like,
all right, I definitely think I want to marry this woman.
And so what happened? He ended up marrying Sarah, but he didn't kill Abraham because he thinks that Abraham is the brother. So now what's Abraham going to do? I mean, is he going to go up against Pharaoh and his army? No, he can't do that, but he did have God on his side because remember, Abraham was righteous. And so what did God do? He sent plagues down upon Egypt. And plagues is certainly something that Egypt was going to need to get used to because this is going to happen again later. And so after these plagues started happening, the Pharaoh asked Abraham,
why is this happening? Why is your God punishing me like that?
And then Abraham told Pharaoh the truth. And Pharaoh was very angry now at what was happening to Egypt. And he says,
here, take your wife and yourself and leave.
And once he did, then the country was restored. And so Abraham left Egypt and went back to Canaan, and he became prosperous again. And God showered him with riches. But Abraham still had the one problem. He didn't have any children because Sarah was still barren. And so he spoke with God again and he says,
how am I going to be this father of a great nation when I can't have kids?
And so for God to show that he keeps his promises, he said to Abraham,
I want you to look up in the sky and I want you to count all the stars that you see.
Now, could you imagine? Abraham's out, 1, 2, 3. He gets up to like 5,600 and then he loses count. He's got to start all over again. Well, what God was trying to say to him was not to actually count the stars. What he was saying to him is that as many stars as you see that are impossible to count, this is now how many children and children of children that you're going to have. Now, sometime later, Abraham and his wife were visited by 3 mysterious strangers. And Abraham said, "These people are not of the earth. They've got this weird aura about them. They're not earthly figures." So he thought that they were angels. But he invited them in. And the strangers asked Abraham,
"Where is Sarah, your wife? We want to tell her that she is going to give birth to a son."
Now Sarah heard this and she started to laugh. And the strangers said,
"Why are you laughing? Do you not think that God is capable of doing this? I mean, God just sent all the plagues to the Pharaoh."
But Sarah said,
Well, I didn't really laugh.
and they said,
"Yes, you did. You don't believe."
but what actually happened later was that Sarah did give birth, and she gave birth to her first son, Isaac. Now, who were these mysterious strangers? Well, we as Orthodox believe that this was the appearance of Father, Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. And what they were telling Sarah was that she was going to give a miraculous birth to the first son of many nations. So think about that now. Because in the New Testament, what do we have? We have the angels sent by God to tell the Virgin Mary that she will have a miraculous birth and that she will give birth to the Son of God. So we've got kind of a foreshadowing in Sarah to what happens with the Virgin Mary. Except for the laughing part, because when the Virgin Mary was told, she was hesitant at first, but then she said, "Let it be according to your will." So she did not laugh. Now, Abraham had many, many more exciting adventures, which is too much for one video. So join us next time when we're going to tell you the story of the explosive incident that occurred at Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, let me ask you a question. When you think of a cataclysmic event, what comes to mind? Well, if we're talking about cataclysmic events in the Bible, 2 things should come to mind. The great flood that destroyed almost all life on earth. And the second one that probably comes to mind is the terrible tragedy of running out of wine at the wedding of Cana. Just kidding. But the event that we're going to talk about today was the destruction of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, an event so cataclysmic that even Jesus spoke about it to his apostles. So this story picks up where we last left off. Remember those 3 mysterious strangers that were with Abraham? Well, one of them revealed himself as God and reluctantly told Abraham what he was going to do next. And that was that he was on his way to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, why would he do that? Well, it was because the evil and the wickedness that was happening in those cities was just as bad as what was happening before the flood. And you know what happened there. So Abraham, hearing God say this, and remembering the story from his great-great-great-papu Noah, perhaps thought to himself,
You know, the last time that something like this happened, God brought a great flood upon the earth, and my great-great-great-papu had to spend 40 days on this ship. And I get seasick, so I don't think this is a good idea. So maybe I better see if I can talk to God.
Now that's not really what happened. What happened was that Abraham, fearing for those innocent people that were living there together with the wicked, would also be punished. And Abraham knew that there were good people there. In fact, his nephew Lot, his wife, and his kids were living there. Why did Lot and his family live in such a wicked place? I guess they didn't have a very good real estate agent. But back to the story. So Abraham bargained with God, And he said to God,
If there are at least 50 good people there, will you spare the city?
and God says,
I will spare the city.
How about 40? 35?
and he got all the way down to 10. And God said,
Fine. If there are at least 10 good people there, I will spare the city.
now God knew that there were at least 4 good people there. And that happened to be Lot's family. So he sent his angels to warn Lot and his family that they should flee the city because it was going to be destroyed. And that's exactly what they did. But God gave them a specific command and said, as you're fleeing the city, don't turn around and look back. And so they fled out of the city. But there was all of this destruction and sounded like bombs going off and everything like that. And his wife got curious and she turned around and bang, she became a pillar of salt. Thank goodness that Lot didn't turn around, or it would have been a pillar of salt and pepper. Now, the impact of this story of Sodom and Gomorrah is so great that Jesus himself referred to it when he was talking about the end of days, that the innocent people would be saved. And in fact, Abraham's bargaining with God forms the basis of our American criminal justice system today. And it's done through what's called Blackstone's ratio. Now, what is that? That is, it is better that 10 guilty persons escape than that one innocent suffer. Without this commitment to innocence, then as soon as we thought somebody was guilty, we'd throw them in jail. But this is not what we do. The source of our mercy in our courts comes from the Bible. It comes from now Abraham's bargain with God. Now, in this video, we're going to take a look at the last installment in the life of Abraham. But before I talk about that, probably some of you have either heard of or you've made a New Year's resolution. I mean, most people do that. But what we don't talk about is how difficult it is to make the sacrifice. For example, many times I say, I'm going to work out more in the next year. And the sacrifice of working out turns out to be too hard. I'm going to give up McDonald's fries, but I just absolutely can't do it. So we're going to talk about sacrifice today, and specifically we're going to talk about something very difficult that God wanted Abraham to do. But maybe it's going to be a little bit easier if I show you an example, and we've got a really great example over here. Now, I've just finished a 40-day fast, and I have been dreaming about a sandwich like this for 40 days. I mean, look at this sandwich. It's got all kinds of cheese, ham, salami. It's going to be a great sandwich. And I don't even care if it breaks my New Year's resolution of losing weight. I'm going to dig into this sandwich right now.
This is the voice of God.
Huh? What? Who? What?
I want you to sacrifice your beloved sandwich.
Are you sure that I have to do it? Can't I just maybe eat a little bit of it and I'll sacrifice the rest? Can I do that?
Throw your sandwich in the trash.
Really? How about I throw half of it in the trash?
If you have faith in me, you will do as I say. Do it now.
Oh, man. All right. But it's going to be very hard. I can't believe that God is making me do this.
Stop. I've changed my mind. You don't have to sacrifice your sandwich.
So I can eat the sandwich?
Actually, that sandwich looks pretty good.
Wait. What? Where's my sandwich now? Where'd it go?
Let me now introduce you to a concept called tithing.
Now, you'd think that God asking me to sacrifice my beloved sandwich that I wanted so bad to put it into the trash, you'd think that that would be like a huge thing. But that doesn't even begin to compare with some of the things that God has asked his people to do. I mean, remember Noah? He asked Noah to sacrifice a huge part of his life to build an ark to house all of the animals and their family for 40 days. I mean, how huge of a sacrifice was that for Noah? Well, in today's story, God is going to ask Abraham to sacrifice something even bigger and even greater than that. Now, if you remember from our last story, Abraham and Sarah wanted to have children, but they couldn't. And through a miracle from God, they gave birth to their first and beloved son, Isaac. Now, sometime later, God spoke to Abraham and said,
I want you to take your son Isaac up the mountain and I want you to sacrifice him.
Now, this is a much, much bigger sacrifice, obviously, than me not being able to eat that really juicy and delicious sandwich. It's much bigger than that. But Abraham, being righteous before God, knew that he had to be obedient. He thought about it because he said, in the past, God has always had my back. So there has to be a bigger plan. And so what did Abraham do? He took his son Isaac and they went up the mountain. And as they were going up, I'm sure the whole way, Abraham was thinking to himself, oh, please, I know that this is going to work out right. He certainly didn't want to kill his son, but he had faith in God. When they reached the top of the mountain, he laid Isaac out and he took out a knife and he lifted the knife up. And just as he was about to bring the knife down, an angel sent by God told Abraham,
you have shown yourself to be righteous before God. Put the knife down and your son Isaac will be spared.
Obviously, Abraham was very relieved that he could have his son back. But the question is, why would God ask Abraham? I mean, he's never done that since, and he never did that before. Well, the answer to that question is, it's what's called foreshadowing, meaning that God was showing us an example of what he was going to do. He was going to send his only begotten son, Jesus Christ, into the world so that he could save the world. And what happened? Jesus was sacrificed and he did die. So what God was showing to Abraham was showing to all of us the great sacrifice that he was going to make for all of his people with his only beloved son, Jesus Christ. So thanks everybody for joining us for this episode of... All right, cool. I got my sandwich back.
If you have faith in me, you will be rewarded.
Is this a reward? I get to eat my sandwich, God?
You may consume your animal meat.
He is a truly loving God. Well, I tell you what, before I enjoy this great sandwich that I've been waiting 40 days for, remember, like, subscribe, and share our YouTube channel. And we'll see you next time.